I'm going to move into our policy update. I'm going to update you on all of the great work that the MPHA policy team and our partners have been doing over the last year. And then, as I said at the very end, I'm going to bring our good friend Noah Berger from the Merrimack Valley Transit Authority to come on and speak to some of the impact that the work that MPHA has done is having out in the community. So first up, last year at this conference, we announced our policy agenda for the 2023-24 session. We have 6 priority areas. There are public health infrastructure, transit justice, housing justice, environmental justice, sustainable food systems, and last but not least, our In Solidarity section, where we follow the lead of trusted partners to advance policies that promote community stability and health for all people, including people of color, immigrants, people who are poor, older adults, youth, LGBTQ plus people, women, people with disabilities, and all others impacted by oppression. The MPHA policy team, with support and investment from our policy council, have fleshed out the policy agenda within each of these policy priority areas. There's a link in the chat to our webpage that lays out some of the specific bills that fall under each of these areas. And we are really excited to be able to work in partnership and in coalition on a number of bills across these very important sectors to advance policy in the state legislature. I'm going to dig in a little deeper on a couple of our priority bills within that list. Hopefully, many of you will feel some of this update to be redundant because you are close followers of MPHA's work and our newsletters, and you are the folks who are taking action, which is moving these bills forward. First up, we've touched on this already in a couple of sessions so far, but SAFE 2.0, we continue our multi-year campaign to transform our local public health system here in Massachusetts. SAFE 2.0 is the next step in that transformation, and we are once again at the finish line with that bill. As many of you know, in part because I can't stop talking about it, SAFE 2.0 came very close to passing last session. It moved to the governor's desk on July 31st, that last day of the formal sessions, but unfortunately the governor at the time sent it back to the legislature with an amendment, and because the legislature was in informal sessions, they were not able to get it across the finish line and back to the governor again. So with our legislative champions, Representative Hannah Kane, Representative Denise Garlick, and Senator Joe Comerford, we refiled the bill this session, and it has already moved through 2 very important steps in the legislature. It had a very early hearing on May 4th in the Public Health Committee. It was advanced favorably out of the Public Health Committee over the summer to the Healthcare Financing Committee, and it was advanced again favorably out of the Healthcare Financing Committee just 2 weeks ago. The bill is now in the House Ways and Means Committee, which means it's basically knocking on the door of the House, waiting to come to the floor for a vote. Janetska has popped into the chat our action alert. I think I should share with folks that very unfortunately, the anti-vaccine activists of Massachusetts have set their sights on SAFE 2.0. And we know that they are driving in calls and emails to the legislature asking for amendments or that the bill be sent back to committee. While I don't know that legislators are moved by that kind of action, it is really important and more important than ever that the legislature keeps hearing from public health folks and folks who know that SAFE 2.0 is really important to the future of this state. So please take a moment right now, if you can, definitely before you click off the conference, to take our action in the link in the chat. It will ask you to email your state rep and your state senator, or give them a call and ask them to weigh in with legislative leadership to bring the SAFE 2.0 bill to the floor. If you've already taken the action, please take it again. We know that there are emails and calls being driven in, as I said, from some people on the other side of the issue, and we really need to make sure that the legislature hears loud and clear that there is still urgency and strong support for the bill. Our second priority bill that we continue to work on is the RTA advancement bill. This bill has not yet been scheduled for a public hearing, but we expect it to come up very soon in the Transportation Committee. This work is led at MPHA by Alexis Walls, who co-convenes the RTA Advocates Coalition with our partners at Transportation for Massachusetts. Stay tuned for more information about how to plug into that work and that hearing as it gets announced. I also have some exciting updates that I'll be sharing in a couple minutes about our budget work on RTAs. Finally, I wanted to highlight our work on housing justice and specifically on a bill to lift the statewide ban on rent control. So Janeska Roman, who you've already seen on the conference today, is leading that work for MPHA. We do that work in conjunction with the Homes for All Coalition. This bill had a hearing just 2 days ago in the Housing Committee. It was a beautiful hearing. There were dozens of advocates and community members there advocating to lift the statewide ban on rent control so that municipalities can do what is best for their communities to stabilize rents and keep people housed where they are in their own communities. The Housing Committee is still accepting testimony on this bill. Janeska has popped into the chat a link to the Homes for All action alert and testimony tool. Once you've taken action on SAFE 2.0, please click through. And if you would like to submit testimony to the Housing Committee, there's a really great tool on the Homes for All website to help you do that. The legislature really needs to hear from folks like you. Tell your own story about your own. I'm sure many of you on the call are experiencing the fallout of huge rental increases that we're seeing all across the state. And we hope that you'll take a moment to tell your story to the Housing Committee. In addition to those bills, MPHA has been testifying at more than a dozen hearings over the last couple of months. It's been a very exciting and busy time for the policy team with great work and leadership from my colleagues, Alexis and Janeska, who I've already mentioned, Kate Forrest, our newest policy team member, and our stellar intern, Julia Geske. We have submitted so much testimony. We have testified orally in person at so many hearings in front of so many committees this year, and I'm really proud of the work that MPHA has done in this space. These are just a smattering of issues that we've testified on. We've testified in support of at least 5 housing bills in the last couple of months, at least 2 environmental justice bills, at least 2 food system bills, at least 2 overdose prevention bills. We testified on the Health Equity Compact legislation, and we've testified on 3 or 4 bills related to safe drinking water. Finally, before I bring on my good friend Noah, who's going to speak a little more to our budget work, I did want to provide a quick update on the FY24 state budget. We are very excited that we, in partnership with many other folks, were able to secure $150 million from state funds to support regional transit authority operating budgets. This is a huge increase. The previous funding level was $94 million, and that was split among all 15 RTAs. This level of $150 million will allow all RTAs to run service 7 days a week. Right now, many of them don't run service on Sundays. And to expand service into evening hours and increase frequency of service during the day. This was a hard-fought battle, and one very important way that the state spent some of the fair share funds that came in through the Fair Share Amendment, which MPHA also supported when it was at the ballot. And we were really excited to see the state actually pony up and give some real money to the RTAs. I'm not going to say more about that because Noah's going to talk more about the specific impacts that that is having, but we were very excited. And this was a huge win for the coalition and for the state. We continued our advocacy for state funds to local and regional boards of health. This goes out through the public health excellence grants that Commissioner Goldstein was talking about, and this is closely related to SAFE 2.0 as well. We secured level funding of $15 million for the local and regional boards of health, and that included having to ask the legislature to override the governor's reduction of that line item, which they did in September. So we are taking that as a very positive sign that the legislature continues to support and see the importance of local and regional boards of health. And we are very glad that that funding continues on for this fiscal year. Finally, the budget included funding for a number of other programs that MPHA supports and advocated for, including the Mass Food Trust Program, Mass in Motion, multiple rental assistance programs, and more. Overall, I think it was a pretty good year for our budget advocacy. We are now gearing up for the FY25 state budget process. Right now, the administration is pulling together its budget, asking its agencies for what their budget priorities are. We expect to see the governor's budget. Well, we know we'll see the governor's budget 3 weeks after the legislature convenes in January. And then from there, MPHA will continue our work to push for budget funding for these and other priorities through the process next year. And we will lean on all of you to take action at the appropriate times. If you would like to plug in to any of this work specifically, please sign up for our list and we will keep you in the loop on that funding. I realize I'm running 2 minutes early. I'm hoping that Noah is with us and that I can pass the baton to him. If not, you'll have to hear me tell bad jokes. Great. Thank you, Noah, from saving everyone from my bad jokes and my ad-libbing. I'm going to turn it over now to Noah Berger, who's the administrator for the Merrimack Valley Transit Authority. He's one of our great partners on the RTA work, and he's going to speak to the ways in which the funding that we all worked so hard for in the state legislature is having a real impact on his agency and by extension on the people of the Merrimack Valley who use transit.
Well, thank you so much, Omi. And I think the downside of your introduction is, well, maybe you've spared people your bad jokes. I'm sure my bad jokes are going to be much worse. But thank you for the introduction. Thanks to everyone on this this webinar. Just to start with, yes. So just by way of context, my agency is MPHA Transit, which is the regional transit authority that serves the Merrimack Valley. You can tell by the yellow in this graphic are the fixed route service areas, but everything in white we serve with demand response service. We're focused, our center of gravity are the 3 gateway cities of Lawrence, Haverhill, and Bethune. Lawrence stands out as many of you know, it's a city that's 83% Latino, which surprises many people outside of Massachusetts. That's actually that's a city in Massachusetts. And unfortunately, it has currently the distinction of being the lowest income city in the Commonwealth. Again, by way of context, we're one of 15 regional transit authorities across the state. We actually serve the vast majority of the cities and towns, over 267, and that represents 55% of Massachusetts residents. So while the T might get all the attention, we're actually doing the bread and butter work in the state. But the most important slide in the entire slide deck is that at MPHA, we just love MPHA. And it's been such a strong partnership for as long as I've been here. And and by the way, in these slides, you see Alexis rallying the troops in an event we held when we went fare free, which I'll talk about a little bit more. And then Omi actually has the distinction of being the only person that's presented at every one of our annual board retreats, where we just try to bring in information on how to be an effective board member. She's done it 2 years in a row, and coincidentally, we've only had the retreat for 2 years. Omi had mentioned the RTA advancement bill, and the efforts to recognize the real need that we serve in the Commonwealth. That I think one of the things that was enlightening for me is that when I first started, now almost 2.5 years ago, one of the first things I did was go out to community groups, and I asked 2 questions: what are we doing well, and what are we doing not so well? And I was prepared to hear both answers. I was less prepared for what I heard most of the time, which is, we have no friggin' idea, you guys are irrelevant to us, which was really eye-opening. And became very clear we needed to be more visible in the communities and, quite frankly, more relevant in the communities. We turned to some of the community groups, and they're working. We have a really strong nonprofit sector, particularly in Lawrence, but in Haverhill as well. And but they're so focused on what I call the 3 H's: health, housing, and hunger, as well as the environment and education. I guess the 2 E's, and don't have the capacity to make that connection that I think MPHA does so well. That transportation is the key to everything. If you can't get to a doctor, if you can't get to a health clinic, if you can't get to a food pantry, if you can't get to a job, then you don't have those opportunities. And really recognizing that transportation is the key to everything. And MPHA is as you Omi demonstrated their heft on Beacon Hill, but really has made quite the difference, and quite frankly, more so than our own trade organization. This is just an illustration. We have been basically level funded dating back to 2015, and if you look in constant dollars, it's actually a decrease. And this is again the funding for all 15 RTAs in one lump sum. I think just after Omi started at MPHA, you saw the big jump up to the $150 million, which has really freed all of us up to finally deliver the level of service that our communities deserve. And now the key is sustaining that. I think there's so much PTSD in the RTA communities that for some of our peers, there's a hoarding mentality, and it's important to now put that service on the roads. So what we have, and this is jumping on me. Yes, this is what I want to show, because this is our ridership. And we are, I think you've heard stories about how transit authorities across the country consider themselves lucky if they're at maybe 70% of their pre-pandemic ridership. We are almost 40% above our pre-pandemic ridership. And as you can see by this chart, it took us a little while to get there, though. So how did we get there? The most high-profile initiative we deployed was to go fare free, which we did in March of 2022. This has been an unmitigated success. The ridership has gone up 38%, and the statistic I love, complaints have gone down 31%. We've actually tripled our ridership since we went fare free. But that's not all we did. And I think that's important to say, because many of the times when people tell you why it's unfeasible to go fare free, is that what is the opportunity cost? What are you not doing because you're fare free? And I think we have to look at it in the full context of what transit authorities are supposed to do. So we didn't say, okay, we'll make it fare free, but free lousy service is great, and we'll call it a day. We also worked on the service, and we worked on how the service is reflective of the community. So one of the first things we did was we took our community and we asked, let's do something that better reflects who we serve. And the color scheme of our buses, if you haven't seen our buses, and you'll see pictures of them, they reflect the diverse communities we serve. The color scheme actually comes from Old San Juan and Puerto Rico, as well as the Zona Colonial in the Dominican, which is where a lot of our riders come from. So you see, we went from buses that had the exact same color scheme as mail trucks, which, no disrespect to our brothers and sisters at the U.S. Postal Service, but that wasn't a welcoming look, to one that really was vibrant and visible and reflected the community. It also included the tagline, "Let's go and vamos," at the top of the bus, because as an industry, the transit has gotten very good at translating to Spanish what you're not allowed to do. Don't talk to the driver, don't step in front of the yellow line, no eating, no drinking, no radio playing, but no positive, welcoming, affirmative statement. And it wasn't just the fixed route buses. We also repainted the vans in the same color scheme. And a lot of people have said, wow, I didn't even realize that the vans were part of the same family of services. And by the way, I just want to call out that disability community was very, very direct that they wanted to see more of the dynamic accessibility symbol, and that's included in both our vehicle types. One of the things I first heard, and just, this is file under little things make a big difference, is the in riding the buses, one of the biggest complaints people complain about the seats. Our old buses, which you see the seats in the upper left, were cloth, which may seem like a good thing until you look too closely at the stains. We later transitioned to slick plastic, which was great, except for the you end up falling on the floor more often than you want. So we actually redid the seats in a way that wasn't cloth, but had some friction, and also brought the color and vibrancy from the outside of the bus on the inside, because that's where the riders are. And one thing that I think is just significant and is that the color schemes, the images, was embraced by the local arts community. So you see none of these are commissioned pieces, but all of them reflect some aspect of the change we tried to do. You can see the old MPHA bus, the color scheme, even this is a bench in the train station that has MPHA on the train in Lawrence. We also simplified the numbers so that we had, the Lawrence numbers, we had a 39A and a 39B, which were completely different routes. All the routes were in the 30s and 40s. So we said, you know what, let's make it simple. And so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, etc. And that's actually made a difference, including little kids who are now counting based on the bus routes that go by. And we also optimize the routes. So and a lot of transit authorities have this, where you have routes that kind of take a very meandering, circuitous path to where they're going. One of the routes I highlight here is the number 7, the former 37. It literally used to go in a figure 8. The 13, the inbound and the outbound were so different that you couldn't get back to where you started without going all the way back to the depot and coming out again. And finally, the 18, we were able to, by straightening that out, we were able to extend it into Groveland for the first time. The gentleman you see at the ribbon cutting for that in the wheelchair, Jay, he literally used to roll for 2.5 miles to get to the start of the where the 18 used to terminate. Now he's able to get it from his home. So that's just one example. We doubled the frequency in Lawrence. So now buses run all day long during the weekdays, every half hour, which is critical. You don't have to wait for an hour if you miss the bus. And thanks to the $150 million that we talked about earlier, we were able to extend service in September. We were the first RTA to be able to put that on the road. So now we have buses running till 10 o'clock at night on our highest volume routes. And just a preview of coming attractions for January, the board just voted to approve these. We'll be adding Sunday service. We'll be increasing our frequency on the number 1, which is our highest ridership route, on Saturdays. So it'll be 7:30 all day long, and we'll extend another hour. And we're adding holiday service. I think, while we still won't run on Christmas and Thanksgiving and New Year's, there are some holidays that are, unique to Massachusetts. Patriots Day, love the marathon, but quite frankly, normal people who don't have government jobs have to work those days. And so we'll be running for the first time. And then finally, for our mini MPHA, which is our paratransit service, we will be providing an extended mini MPHA to the Bedford VA, which is outside of our service district, but that's a critical ask for a lot of people in our community. So just another thing I'd like to highlight is that we have an express bus during the summer that goes directly from Lawrence to Salisbury Beach. We go to Salisbury Beach all year long on our regular route, but this gets you there faster, and that's really an equity issue, that Lawrence is so close to the beach and yet so far away if you don't have a car. And then also, again, to be more visible, to be less intimidating, we're adding colorful signature bus shelters across the service area. we're actually able to take advantage of a grant from the state for the shared streets and spaces that really make it less, you don't have to just sort of wave for a bus as it goes by on the side of the street. And for the first time, we're going to put up information on what route stops there and where it's going. So just sort of democratize the service. And then finally, we established MPHA as a great place to work. I think one of the things that the big narrative across the country is there's a national driver shortage. We've somehow been able to buck that trend. We've increased our workforce by almost 40% over the last 2 years. And that's been very intentional. Our team is literally busted their butts all this time, getting the word out, recruiting folks. A lot of it is also current drivers telling other drivers, potential drivers, this is a great place to work. We painted the driver's lounge for the first time in 30 years. We added a massage chair. You see one of our drivers sitting in it there. We added a high-end coffee machine, which you can get coffee in fancy Italian flavors that I never heard of. But I have to say, the number one drink that people get, even in the summer, is hot chocolate. So we have that available as well. And I think you also see a picture. We had an employee appreciation barbecue this past fall, including just various games and just a way of showing that these men and women are on the front lines. They are the face of MPHA. So that is sort of a summary of what we've been able to do, what we're looking forward to doing. We're so looking forward to working with Omi and Alexis. We'll actually be joining in a roundtable both in Lawrence, Haverhill, as well as Lowell, are joining RTA, just to help educate about the importance of public transportation and why it's worthy of investment. So thank you.
Wow, Noah, thank you so much for sharing all the visuals. I'm very impressed by it. It's really exciting to see the way in which your agency is putting these dollars into action. And I'm also struck that, we could have had you on the earlier panel, I think, about data into action. The way in which that MPHA has used data has really helped MPHA. And I want to lift up again the leadership of Alexis in this conversation to connect those dots for legislative leaders. I think when I came into this work, I am a lifelong Massachusetts resident. I'm sort of embarrassed to say I didn't really know anything about the RTAs. I rode the PVTA when I was in college in Western Mass, but other than that, was very ignorant about the state of the system. And I think we found that in the State House as well, that even legislators that have an RTA in their district didn't necessarily know how poorly funded the system was, and that the system wasn't able to deliver even basic services to its riders. And I know that I think part of the success we've seen with the funding in the State House is because of some of the bold actions that MPHA took even before the funding was available. So the fare free program, chief among them. And the way also that as an administrator, and the way that MPHA has used public education and the press to great effect, that when we go into meetings with the budget writers of the State House, we're able to link to stories that have been written about MPHA and the increase in ridership and in the increase in hiring, and show that this is a good investment of state dollars. I don't know if you want to say anything more about how that has felt on your end, but we've really appreciated that kind of advocacy from MPHA.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think the critical thing too is that getting the actual individual stories, because as much as a graph or data helps make a point, there's nothing more compelling than a real person who says, hey, I'm able to get to a job, I'm able to get to a training program, I'm able to live my life because this service exists.
We do have a few minutes for questions. If folks have any burning questions, please pop them into using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Somebody asked, Noah, if you could share more about the data collection process, how you gathered that data, and any types of methods you used.
Well, I mean, the data for tracking the ridership, we have automatic passenger counters on the on our vehicles, which literally they're actually you cross a laser beam and it knows how many people are on the bus. I think there's oftentimes a misunderstanding that people think it's the fare box that calculates ridership. In a different era, that is how transit authorities used to count ridership, and that, by the way, was a terrible way to count ridership because the fare box invariably undercounts what your ridership is, and in particular tends to undercount more so in low-income neighborhoods. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that it doesn't look like you're providing the service where it's most needed.
Thank you. Somebody else asks, are there any health messages on your buses?
We are open to providing health messages. That's one of the organizations that was most angry with us for wrapping our buses in the distinctive colors was the advertiser that sells advertising rights on our buses that said, "Oh, you're taking away our real estate for advertising." And I said, "Well, if it's so valuable, let's advertise us." We do have the slots on the inside of the buses, and definitely our goal now is to make those available for PSAs. So everyone on this webinar are welcome to reach out to us to propose putting messages on our buses on the inside.
Thanks, Noah. I think as we close out, I also, the other thing I wanted to lift up is that one thing that we say frequently at MPHA is that public transit is a public good, and
yes,
that is very important framing, especially for decision makers. And I think that what you are doing at MPHA really shows that it is more than just getting people from point A to point B, but I really appreciate the attention that you've clearly paid to all of the constituencies that you have in centering community engagement, community needs in the workforce, in the people who ride the bus. Even your note about kids counting the bus numbers, that the bus is a really central part of city life. And it's very exciting, the things that are happening at MPHA, especially in a time when we are experiencing and seeing massive disinvestments and what happens when you disinvest in public transit. It's very impactful to be able to hold up MPHA as an example of what you can do if you invest in community.
No, and I think in terms of the transit as a public good, while there are some people that bristle at that, I think one analogy that often resonates is, nobody takes issue with libraries being free, and so that's if we understand why libraries are free, why wouldn't transit be free?
Well, thank you so much, Noah, for joining us. Thank you all for tuning into this conversation, for your great questions during these sessions.